I'm Barney Barron Views, and I have to read so I can't get too long-winded. My family's been farming in this area for about 125 years. I came back to farm in the early 80s. My wife joined me 20 years ago and farms with me on our 450-acre diversified livestock, cattle, sheep, pigs, and chickens and crop farm. Our main products are beef and organic soybeans, but those products are integrated into a long rotation that includes hay and oats so that we can be kind to the land. In our desire to make our farming more closely mimic the prairie that preceded us, we now raise our cattle exclusively on grass and forbs, meaning that our cattle are not fed any grain. When I was recently asked about why we farm the way we do, I was reminded of something I realized about 10 years ago. When I was a kid, if you drove for an hour or two at night, your windshield would be covered with bugs. You'd have to pull over and clean them off. It was that bad. Maybe in other places that is still true. But nowadays in Iowa, if you're driving at night, 4 or 5 bugs hitting your windshield is almost a big deal. These bugs are at the bottom of the food chain. What happens to the bottom of the food chain eventually affects the top. This change in biodiversity isn't by accident. It coincides directly with the changes in how we farmed over the decades. Everyone used to farm a little of everything. On a square mile, you could easily find 4 farms. Nowadays, if you go around the same square mile, 2 of the farms are gone, all that's left's a driveway. If you didn't know they were there before, you never would. One of the farms is an acreage where someone lives, and if you're really lucky, the 4th one is still a farm. That's because the policies of the 70s encouraged farming fence row to fence row, making it really difficult to farm any other way. It also encouraged grain production and the maximization of corn and soybeans, taking out pasture and oats and hay, so rarely resting the soil. The lack of diversity isn't just impacting the bugs. It's working its way up the food chain and impacting our water. We have a creek on each of our 2 major farms. Each serve as a source of water for our cattle. The creek at our home place is Rock Creek. In 2022 and 2023, Rock Creek was filled with pretty colors. If you know anything about creeks, water isn't supposed to look like that. And Sugar Creek is always cleaner, and about 1/3 of it comes from Grinnell, the city of Grinnell. So instead of letting our cows drink from that creek, we had to haul 1,200 gallons of water a day, and they had access to the creek, but they drank the hauled water. Our neighbors across the highway who didn't have access to a well and couldn't haul water ended up losing a calf, had multiple cows lose skin around their nose. When diversification and soil health is prioritized over production, the result is clean water and nutritious food. The problem is, current farm policy does not incentivize diversifying and encourages the use of chemicals, often called crop protection products, which in layman's terms is poison. It's the poisons that are killing the bugs in the air, the water, and the soil. As Secretary of Agriculture, how would you promote diversification and soil health practices on Iowa farms?
Firstly, I would tell you, I've been convinced of this, that what keeps the current system entrenched is ethanol. And so it keeps farmers growing corn and soybeans. We created a guaranteed market for corn. That's caused an inflation of land prices that really makes no sense. And so we have to start a retreat from ethanol, in my opinion, if we're going to diversify this landscape, at least at scale. So that's step one. Then, we have 11,000 square miles of our land that are growing corn for ethanol. That's 1/5 of our state, besides the 20 counties. And so then we've got this land, what are we going to do with it, right? That's the question. And that's scary for a lot of people. What else can we do? Well, for example, here we have, I think, 4 or 5 food hubs in state of Iowa where they distribute food to schools and other things, and they use locally sourced food crops, vegetables. And I met with a person in Iowa City yesterday that's in charge of the food hub over there, the Southeast Iowa Food Hub. They cannot get enough food. right? They can't get enough food. They've got about 100 farmers that supply to them, and they can't get all that they need. The orders exceed the amount of food that they can get. We invest almost no money in this program in Iowa to recruit farmers and to help farmers transition into these other systems. And a lot of these farmers are making money, right, that are supplying food to these food hubs. So why can't our Department of Agriculture promote this sort of thing? You know, you look back 100 years, a town like Grinnell, a lot of the food that you ate was sourced to local farmers growing the food. In Iowa City, we had the same thing. You know, now we don't have that. Farmers got funneled into this two-crop system.
Right.
Food systems went regional and eventually global. That cut the margins that farmers get for their crops. It took the money spent on food outside our borders. And now we have this system that works for nobody, right? Works for nobody. So step one, get rid of ethanol.